Hello and welcome to the British Dapper. Today we're talking about why dressing well changes everything. So dressing well can build an air of confidence, success, and also create a very good first impression. And so I'm just talking to you today about how dressing for success, if you like, is a positive step forward for anybody in this day and age. And if you want to impress somebody, whether that be at a job interview or in your personal life, then dressing well is always going to be a positive move. So when it comes to confidence or self-confidence, it's a good way of giving you a tool to engage in conversation with other people about the way that you're dressed, the way that you behave, and it does break down barriers very quickly by the way you dress. People are more inclined to open doors for you or to offer you an upgrade in a restaurant or in some other capacity. So it is always wise to dress well and make the best of what you have. It's too easy in this day and age to slip into the I'm more of a comfortable sort of guy. Well, unfortunately, the top end jobs don't go to the guy that's comfortable. It goes to the person that promotes a good, positive look, approach. The way that they behave themselves is what gets them the job, along with their qualifications and experience. So whether we like it or not, people do judge us on the way we look and the way we behave. Nobody has the right to respect. Respect is earned, and it's earned by demonstrating certain qualities. And dressing well is one of those little tools we can use to help us move forward and promote a more positive person, whether it be in that job interview or in our more personal lives. If it's going for a job interview or going to a bank to see a bank manager about a loan, and these things are really not necessarily expected or demanded, but in this day and age it still cuts a lot of weight if you want to get some sort of success from that. So with that confidence, it does boost your ego a little bit as well. If you start to get compliments and people recognize you for the way you're dressing and the way you're behaving, and that does inspire you to promote yourself in a positive way more and more. It makes you feel important, and I don't mean as in being treated in a certain manner, more a case of it makes you feel good about yourself, important to you and to other people. And it certainly cultivates a feeling of self-worth. I think that's where I'm coming from. So one of the first things I would suggest is think about the sort of clothes that you wear. Now, if you wear a suit, it's going to be that top end sort of event that you're going to, maybe a wedding, a funeral, or a job interview, or maybe approaching the bank for a loan, or something along those lines where dressing for the occasion is expected, or you want to dress that little bit more than a more casual look. And in this day and age, it is easy to dress that way on a budget, because a lot of people don't dress like that formally. So it does allow you to pick up cheaper pieces second-hand potentially if you want to venture into the world of wearing a suit and a more sartorial look. So just something to consider about that. When you're purchasing that suit, try and go for the top end if you can. So we're looking at wool, we're looking at really good, well-structured garments, and not looking at the cheaper end where we've got fused jackets, for example, or for example the materials are polyester or acrylic based. So when we're talking about that area of success, It can create an air of authority when people see you dressed in a certain manner. It demonstrates an attention to detail if you do it really well, and that comes across to other people. He's well put together. He's polished his shoes. He's wearing a pressed suit. He's wearing a shirt. Those things stand out. Even to the untrained eye, people recognise somebody that's smart and well turned out. It also demonstrates or shows an ordered person in that they are methodical, the way that they dress themselves, their attention to detail comes through that as well. And it demonstrates a skill level that they are conscious of what they wear. They are using what they wear as not only a form of armour, if you like, but also as a way of demonstrating to people that they have a certain amount of knowledge. For example, a pocket square elevates that look a little bit, and wearing certain materials demonstrates again an understanding of what they're wearing. And not to the person necessarily that has no understanding of this, but when you start going up into more sartorial environments, people are very conscious and aware of what other people wear. It's just one of those things where you pick up on the fact they're wearing a cheap suit or they're wearing an expensive suit. Their shoes are polished, their shoes are a good pair of shoes, they're well maintained, they're heeled. Those sort of things carry through and also adds to that air of success. And people like to invest in success. So if we want to put that into a practical sense, then even when we're wearing more casual clothes, it's still that well put together, well presented image that we want to try and purvey. Now, whilst we might not be the most handsome person in the room, and we might not necessarily be the stature of an Adonis model, but it's about making the best of what we have. It's about being well groomed, well turned out, well pressed, shoes polished, shoes well maintained, because there's nothing worse than seeing somebody with their shoes polished and then when they're walking away you see the heels are worn down to this level where it's damaging the shoes and it doesn't show attention to detail. In fact, it then turns it completely on its head as an image. The same with the ties that we use. If they're well maintained and cleaned, that's one of the key things that I pick up on, is the little grubby finger marks on the tie where somebody has tied the knot once and then not undone the knot. Therefore, every time they pull it up, they get that little grubby mark there because they haven't washed their hands before or after to put the tie on or take it off. And the same with a pocket square. Having a pocket square makes a world of difference and elevates that look above and beyond. So even if you're not wearing a suit, maybe you're wearing a casual jacket and a pair of trousers or chinos, maybe even jeans, a pocket square just lifts that and elevates that look. The same with a shirt. If it's well pressed, the collars are nice and crisp, then it really does elevate that look and really does help you not only in your professional life but also in your personal life. And after all, that's what we do it for, isn't it? For example, if we're taking our wife or our partner or future girlfriend out for dinner, then we make that effort. If we don't be surprised if they're going to not be there in a few years' time. So as I was talking about those first impressions, it really does draw attention to you. And people are, by nature, judging people by their first appearance. So if it's a good experience, in other words, the person's dressed well, they behave well, they have manners, and that carries a lot of weight, even in this day and age where people think they're all gangsters, wearing hoodies, trainers, and they've got the swagger walk on, it doesn't mean a thing when it comes to going for a job or an interview. That's when that person that does make the effort gets the job 9 times out of 10. It's about that first impression, the way you behave, and it's the genuineness of that. And that takes time. If you're not used to being that way, you have to cultivate over time a rapport with yourself and others, and elevate the way that you talk to people to being a nice person. Even when you feel you don't necessarily agree with the person, it's always a good way to progress in any situation when we're talking about dealing with people on a one-to-one basis, party, or for example in work environment, that we are always a professional way we put ourselves forward. And not only that, the manner in which we do that is not condescending, and if you haven't got anything good to say, then don't say anything. That is the best way to get through an awkward situation, not only at work with colleagues, but also in a more professional environment where you don't necessarily agree with the person. It doesn't mean to say that you are right or they are wrong. Everybody has their own point of view. But it's the way you carry yourself through those discussions that really counts. And that is all part of that first impression. So let's talk about some of the tools that we could use to create or cultivate that image of dressing well and being put together. So I'm just going to go through a few quick ideas for you, talking about the suited look, not only that, also the more casual look, and hopefully that will give you a few bits of inspiration to help you in the future. The list that I'm going to show you or go through is not exhaustive, but it's just to give you a flavour or an understanding of the way you can progress to a more sartorial way of life. So the suit is one of those main pieces of clothing in your arsenal, if you like, in your wardrobe, that will really make you stand out. And we can go from the more formal, where we're looking at a navy suit or a charcoal grey suit, and it's a very formal look, maybe even employing a bowler hat, for example. I mean, that's the sort of level that we're talking about, that CEO look, that person that's really at the top of their game. But at the same time, that can be a little bit more relaxed by changing the pair of shoes for a more informal pair of shoes, or the tie might be a bit more colourful, and the shirt colour might change, and we bring it down a little bit in its look overall. We can start to employ different materials. For example, Prince of Wales fabric is another way of bringing it down its level of formality, but also it does still give you that point of interest. Something else you can consider is when we start using plain but more muted colours in our suit, and maybe even in hot climates we start using more beige taupe based colours, and it's still potentially a very good look in a suit, not necessarily in the workplace but also in the personal life. For example, a wedding, a funeral, or something like that in a very hot climate where you still have to wear a suit. It's a good item to wear. By employing those lighter colours, it gives you the ability to still wear a suit and still has quite a formal look about it, even in the more casual setting. And again, it allows you to wear less formal coloured shoes, for example from black all the way down to browns, and you still have a really good look. When we go into the more casual situation where we're now looking at employing a jacket of some description and a different pair of trousers, in other words separates, then we've got the traditional tweed jacket look or a sport jacket look, and we can pair that with a pair of chinos or maybe even a pair of wool trousers, and it's a really good look. One of the key tools that I use is the navy blazer. Navy blazer and a pair of grey flannel or grey trousers and a pair of black shoes or a dark mid-brown shoes and a nice striped tie gives you a really quite a formalised look. But you can equally relax that a little bit more by wearing jeans as an example, more casual shoes, suede shoes, and they might not be lace-ups, they might be, for example, loafers of some description, and it's still a very good look. And you can relax the tie a little bit, not wear a tie when you're wearing jeans, and it's a great look overall for that more casual setting. You could even wear it with a pair of plimsolls or deck shoes if you really wanted to bring it down another level. But again, it's quite a good look overall. And with the separate jacket, tweed is always a good one for the cooler months. But when it starts to get really warm, then we're looking at something a lot less structured. And I tend to go with two colours. I've got a dark brown cotton-based jacket and another one which is a cotton linen mix. But the cotton element is about 80% compared to the linen, so it keeps a good shape even though it's unstructured, and it doesn't wrinkle so easily. And that's one of the awkward things about linen. Linen's great for breathability, but it does crease quite badly with wear. Equally, we can even go a little bit further with the casuality, and you could wear a jumper of some description instead of a jacket, and with that you still get a really good look. We could wear a polo jumper, for example, and we still have that tweed jacket or a sport jacket and a pair of trousers, even jeans, and with that overall look, the casuality, you still have a good look. Equally, we could wear that heavier wool jumper in the winter months, and I go for a roll neck jumper that will really add some warmth to your overall ensemble. But even with a pair of jeans and a pair of brogue shoes or a wool coat, it really does give you quite a polished look, but still quite a sharp look. And I think that's the key thing about wearing these items, is wearing them where it's a little bit different and it's sharp, a little bit edgy, but not too much that you look like it's a clown outfit. And it's just finding that balance. With time, you become more proficient at pulling these things together and making ensembles that really are effective. And I suppose you could put them into what we would call a playbook, so you know for certain situations what you would pull together to make an ensemble that's really effective and what you feel good about when you go out. So just a few things there for you to think about. But we also have a Patreon page, and I'll put the link down below, and with that you gain access to additional monthly videos, but depending on your contribution to the channel depends on how much more you gain from the Patreon group. For example, you can have access to our WhatsApp group for regular chats and interactions with other members, and you can talk about other sartorial issues, and you can have access to weekly videos, or if you want to go to the next level, you can have one-to-one tuition with myself on a monthly basis, or even if you just want to have a chat with me informally, then you can do that by video call. And also you have access to behind the scenes videos as well, just talking about where the channel's going and what I'm doing that week in preparation for our ongoing delivery of the British Dapper. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe, then please feel free to do so. We have a Buy Me a Coffee page, so if you'd like to make a contribution to the channel, then please feel free to do so. We also love constructive comments, so if you'd like to make some, jot them down below. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. And if you've got a question you'd like to pose to us or you'd like an answer to, then why not jot it down? We'll try and answer your question for you. We also like ideas for future videos, so if you want to make a contribution and make a suggestion about future content, then please, again, jot it in the notes below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. The next video could be something that you've recommended or suggested. So until next time, take care.